Erin's speech for us today is not for her pathway certification. Instead, she asked us that her evaluator and those of us in the audience help her work on her pacing. The title of the speech is How to Use Photography to Develop Your Remote Relationships. It's going to be 30 minutes long, but certainly in this virtual day, it's what we all need to learn. Erin Poppe.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Let us see if technology is going to work for us today, shall we?
Yeah.
Can everybody see this title slide? Wonderful. I'm going to attempt to be able to see you all at once. That would be absolutely lovely. With that, I should just jump over to this slide because that's what I'm doing anyway. A tech check. If everyone could join me real quick in either making sure you can see the slide, making sure you can at least see me, if not other people in the audience, making sure your mic is muted if it isn't, and you're welcome to post questions in the comments that we'll save for the Q&A later, and I'll bring it up again at the end. So, thumbs up, I'm seeing thumbs up. Wonderful. I am recording this meeting entirely as well. It's our intention to chop up the meetings and upload speeches to our YouTube channel, but I do try to send out now the full meeting recording to everybody in attendance afterwards in case they want to go back, see what happened, or forward it on to a friend that wasn't able to attend but wanted to. I will send an email after this meeting with a link to that once it's finished creating, as well as a PDF to this slide, in case you want to keep any of the information to yourself. But it is worth noting, I think, that you are more than welcome to screenshot or take pictures of the slides as we go. If you don't know how to do that, one, you can use your phone in your hand to just take a picture of the slide, or I looked it up, you can screenshot on a Mac by pressing Shift, Command, and 3 together. So if you have a Mac, go ahead and do that just to test it out. And if you have a PC, hit the print screen button that's right next to F12, just off to the right. So that way, at one point, spoiler alert, a little bit later in the speech, there will be a point for that knowledge. But in general, this is a learning club. So even if you didn't take anything else away from the speech today, you have a little bit of technology knowledge. With that, let's run through the speech real quick. First off, today I'm going to share with you ultimately what I think is a very unique value of photography, which is using it as an engagement tool. And I could mean that within the typical sense of it gets me and you as a photographer and a subject to have a shared moment together, to connect, to reflect about what's happening and make each other feel good. Or my other favorite, as my father suggested or mentioned, I am a Clifton Strengths coach and a leadership development coach. So I've seen the power that photography has to create employee engagement in our teams, whether we're in our offices together or separated by working from home. And from youth to older populations, photography is something that is accessible by all now more than ever, whether it's having gear like the one I have right here, or you might hear every once in a while a click. It's because I have my other camera set up on a tripod with a remote shutter right here so that we can use these photos for our club later on our website. But like I said, it's accessible now more than ever. And in doing so, we create a bridge that, be it age, be it income, be it location, be it any other sort of barrier, we have a way to get over it together. I also want to briefly touch on some mindsets that can limit your and other people's development when it comes to photography, or take out the word photography and insert anything else into there that I think is worth acknowledging and then leaving at the door before we continue. And then finally, it's my hope today that some of the activities I incorporated into this speech are ones you could then model in your homes, in your teams, by yourself, in any sort of capacity in order to both improve your creative skills and your relationship building abilities. Does anybody have any questions so far before I continue on? Jay? Wonderful. Again, you're welcome to post questions in the comments as we go along. If something is urgent, feel free to wave me down. If you need me to pause and repeat something because your audio glitched out, that doesn't bother me at all either. Now, a little about me. As my wonderful introducer mentioned, I have been a photographer for 12 years this summer, and I first started getting paid to take portraits of my classmates when I was a senior at Burlington Edison High School, because as the photo editor of the yearbook the year prior, I realized how unsettling it was to see a handful of page after page of people looking like this. Their eyes were screaming off of the page from how uncomfortable they were. It didn't look like the people I was passing in the halls every day. And so I had the crazy thought that I think I could take pictures of people that actually look like them. And I do. That's a big part of my portrait photography business that, again, started 12 years ago this summer. It's a really weird thing to say, and I have to repeat it just to believe it myself. But the photos I take, like this one of my friend Juan's wife, Bianca, and their child, Anaí, all three who live in Burlington, it's them. It was a newborn session in their home. And yes, I have another photo of just Bianca and Anaí right in that pose where they're cuddling and looking cute. And, you know, that is just the traditional mommy and baby photo that everybody wants. But then a split second later, Juan stuck his hand in there and bopped his daughter on the nose. And I am so thankful I caught it, because this is one of my favorite photos that I've ever taken as a portrait. It just captures so perfectly both the beauty and the comfortability of that family, but also the humor and joy that they inherently bring into raising their daughter together. So that's really what I'm trying to get at with my portraits, is environmental. What is your life like right now? And what are those moments that you constantly think, oh, I wish I had a camera right now? I can be that person. With that, environmental photography also lends itself to event coverage, which I also do. This is a photo set of, I'm going to make sure I have his name right, Vu Lei, who is a owner of the Seattle-based nonprofit AF. And he came and spoke at the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance conference in Miami in 2019 over what he saw as calls to action in the nonprofit field. And I love conference photography for the sake of getting these moments that people don't just look like they are standing rigidly behind podiums and they look uncomfortable and they're counting down the minutes till their speech is done. No, they enjoy the fact that they're there sharing their knowledge. And I love then turning the camera on the crowd as speakers are going. That said, I'm kind of in mourning right now over conferences because I don't think they're going to be a thing for a while. I'm also an educator from people of all ages, all backgrounds, all needs. It doesn't matter. I just love sharing the knowledge I've collected over the course of my life, career, interactions, and this photo is one of my favorites of my classes. I was actually babysitting the girl on the right while running a class on the left. And I just gave, I think she was 4-ish in that photo. I just gave her my camera, again, set the ground rules I do with all kids that I work with of, this is my camera, the strap goes around your neck, you hold it like this, you do not run, and the moment you do, the camera's gone for good. It's not something you ever get a hold again. And so far, no child, no matter their age, has ever dropped it. They are amazing when it comes to taking photos with my big cameras, and it freaks out all the adults around them, which is also a little enjoyable for me at the same time. Also, as we mentioned, my father is in Toastmasters, and he is the reason I am here with you today. He did the incredible feat of getting me up at like what would have been about 5:30 for the first couple times of attending Toastmasters when I was visiting in person, and I am so happy he did, and that he has continuously been the person to motivate me to start my day and try out new things that will later benefit, make me feel great. It's just incredible what he's done. So thank you, Dad, by the way. So with that, real quick, some things to leave behind just right now, whether you're holding them or not. If you don't think you're a photographer, I'm going to challenge you because you are. If you've taken any sort of photo ever, I'm going to give you the accreditation of photographer because everybody has their own milestone set for what it means to be a photographer. For a lot of people, it's the first time you get paid. For others, it's the first time you get published. For some, it's I have to get a degree. I have to own a business for X amount of years. It doesn't matter what the milestone is. Everybody's is different. But the fact is you've taken a photo before, and that's the only important part here. Because if you've taken a photo, if you know how to press the button, you can do everything any other photographer can. It just takes a little work to understand the technical aspects and skills behind it. Your gear is good enough. Your smartphones are better equipment than the majority of our population has ever had in their entire life. And many of the greatest photographers we have ever known, like Ansel Adams, had a fraction of the equipment and the knowledge that we do today. So everything is at our fingertips. And everything you have, whether it's yourself or your camera, is more than good enough to take a good photo. And finally, if you think no one wants to see your photos, that's not true, because I know I do. I want to see your photos. I want to help you improve. I want to invest in you and your ability to show how you see your own world. But beyond that, this is a very common limitation, insecurity, even with the most professional of photographers. I cannot tell you. It's probably up near like the tens of thousands of photos I have stored somewhere that I don't think is good enough the first time I see it. And then a couple of years later, I'll go back and look and cull through them and realize, well, I was really hard on myself. It's actually a pretty neat photo. I could still share that right now. And the other point, photos are timeless. Whether it's from a moment you took it right then or a photo you took 50 years ago, somebody is always going to want to see it. So don't be afraid to show off what you're doing, whether it's me or to other people in your life. So that's my soapbox for coming to the table today. Now I want to give you just 60 seconds to answer some questions that I think will help set some intentions for you to make this the most meaningful experience possible. Just based off of the title of the speech and what I've gone through so far, how to develop relationships using photography remotely, and the combination words I used for that title. Just from that, what do you think you're going to learn today, or what do you want to learn today? Who in your life can you share it with by this time next week? And what camera are you going to use to practice? Again, it could be your smartphone. It could be professional grade gear like this. It could be a pinhole camera that you made with your kids, anything. But having this set now will help ensure that this information proves useful to you later. I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds to think about it. All right, I won't ask you to share this time, but there will be audience participation later, so just be prepared for that. But for now, we are going to just hit the main point real quick, which is why photography, why the speech, why even bother reframing this resource through the lens of relationship building. And for me, it's because I know photography can be an equalizer. I know that it can be an elevator for others, for yourself, for your community. I also know it can be an escape from the reality you're living in right now, which for many people, especially right now, is sorely needed. And it's my hope that whether it helps you create empathy with another person, whether it helps you feel good or get out of your own bubble for a second, that's the point for today, from my perspective. Yours could be different, but I encourage you to change the way you think about photography outside of just taking a quick photo of your cat sleeping in the sun, to what is the value of that photo? Who else in your life is going to love and feel good by seeing that sleepy cat? Who else in your life is going to reach out to you and say, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were a feline owner. Here's some tips I have for you. How can it help you forget that anything else in the world exists but you and your animal for a second, which, you know, is recharging for everyone on some level. So that's my point. Now, take us back to that first point of photography as an equalizer. I don't think I have to list off all the different ways that photography has created empathy in our world. We have all, either personally, professionally, or as a student of history, have seen the value that photography can give to create awareness for situations that we don't share, to understand the impact of personal choices like Ruby Bridges going to school. If we didn't have photos of her walking with escort through crowds of people, berating this little girl for just seeking knowledge, then those of us who never learned of the Tulsa race massacre would have even less empathy for what people experience day after day just by sharing a different skin color. So again, photography, it can be an equalizer, it can create empathy, and it also doesn't have to be that serious, because empathy is also something that you connect with people on a day-to-day basis. So our first activity is My Day in One Photo. Pick one photo that either best captures your day so far or what lies ahead. I know it's only, almost 9:30 for me, so I've had a little more time in my day to think of this, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about it. Create your answer either on paper or in your own head or on your notes app. And then I'm going to ask just one person to join me in sharing their reasons why. So 2 minutes. I'm done. One minute left. All right, technically there's still 30 seconds on the clock, but is anyone finished and would like to share what they thought of? Go ahead.
That one of the gal juggling, whatever those are, makes me think about what my day is going to be like. I'm going to be juggling a number of things. I like it.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing, Phil. And like I said, I'm only going to pick on one person for this first activity, but this one is very easy to replicate in so many different ways. My day in one photo, my life in one photo, my relationship in one photo, my cat in one photo. I just played with my cat, so she's on my mind. But no matter what, this is an activity that you can either do by yourself or do in combination with other people in order to let them see a little bit of what your world is like right now, even if they live halfway across the country, like me and my dad do. Now, like I said, photography can also be an elevator. It can help people feel seen and valued and noticed for the unique contributions they offer to your communities, your workplaces, your families. And that is such a necessary component for relationship building. You cannot create a relationship with somebody else without making them feel seen in some way. And I know for me personally, I like to tie this into nonprofit photography. That was where I got my feet wet. I know my career started 12 years ago professionally getting paid for photos, but for a couple of years before that, I was donating my photography services to any nonprofit my parents worked with in Skagit Valley, which was a lot. There were times I did not see my mother for days at a time because she was on the board for at least like 7 to 10 different organizations at once. That said, I always valued their commitment to engaging and improving our community. And when they gave me my first camera, when they noticed I had passion and talent aligning in a way that didn't seem to be losing steam, and Dad, I'm sure, wanted his camera back, they got me my own and asked me, how are you going to use this to help others? That was my first charge with photography. And I thought, well, last time I saw one of the brochures from X organization, I saw a lot of backs of heads. I saw a lot of underdeveloped photos, a lot of blurry photos, and a lot of photos of people standing in line at a buffet at the last conference I went to. That tells me nothing about their impact. That tells me nothing about their value for the people that live next door to me. So I started waking up with my parents, not just to stand on the sidelines during the baby women's run and hold a marker. I also brought my camera and took pictures of people running, of volunteers interacting, and donated those photos free of charge in hopes that that would encourage other people to see what they do, understand what they do, and get involved themselves. Now, to that end, like I said, you need engagement in order to create relationships, especially through a medium like photography. And I'll tell you personally, one of the most frustrating things for me as a photographer, a creative, a human being, is to approach someone with enthusiasm, possibly because of my Clifton strength of positivity, and to be met with a wall, i.e., hey, look at this photo I took. I tried so hard on it. Don't you like it? Yeah, it's cool. What do you like about it? It's got colors in it. Cool. Thank you for your input. I will keep taking photos of things with colors in it. Helpful. Appreciate you. So constructive commenting, which I prefer to say over constructive critique, is important both in photography and in relationships. So for this activity, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms for, let's say, 5 minutes. I'll pull you back. And I'm going to ask you to screenshot or take a photo of this image right here, right now, so you can reference it while you're in your breakout rooms. And I want you to break it down, debrief it with each other. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What techniques, knowledge do you have about photography that you can see was actively put into it? Whatever question that pops into your head or idea, say it to your group. And when we get back, I'll ask one representative from each to just say one constructive comment they came up with. Let me give you that framework real quick. I like X. I don't like X because of Y. And here is an additional follow-up comment that I see. Roughly the framework of a constructive comment. But I trust you all to know what to do. I encourage you that since this is Toastmasters, take the time to formally introduce yourself to everyone in your breakout group, even if you already know each other. Practice anyway. And with that, I will see you in 5 minutes. You can communicate with me via the chat. I can communicate with you via the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. Sound good? Thumbs up? Wonderful. See you soon. If it's going to work. Open all. You should have all received an invite. Yep. Doing great. Welcome back. Everyone else is really taking their time. They have like 5 more seconds left, and they are taking it.
We are back. We're back in the main session.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, now I'm back.
Happy to see all of your faces again. I was getting a little lonely. Now, I would love for one person of each group to volunteer up something they or somebody else shared about this photo. Go for it, Shelley. I'll come to you next.
So I was in group 3 with Sakoshi and Lance, and for me, I love this picture. I spend a lot of time out on the water, and it just reminds me of what it's like to be out with the water, so what we call glass mirror, soft and very peaceful. The sun, I love the way it's caught in the bridge, but I love the reflection on the water. It's a hard picture to capture when you can catch that much of a brilliance of the sun on the water. And I like the 2 cars on the bridge just off to the left. There's people on, cars on the right, people on the left. But it just gives me that sense of peacefulness when I'm out on the water on our boat.
Thank you so much for sharing, Shelley. Tina?
Yes, everything that Shelley said. I was in a group with Eric and Phil, and we really liked the streak of the sun on the water that was really captured really well. We thought that the color was a little bit orange, and for me that sun is kind of a detractor, and I don't know how you would fix that, a different filter or a different angle or something. But overall, the composition is really great, and it really captures the Deception Pass, the area.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you for naming the secret fact in there, which is this is Deception Pass. All right, Janie, you're up.
What we really appreciated was that there were so many places to look. Your eyes just kept traveling from one area to the next and noticing different things. Rebecca noticed that it looked like there was maybe some leaves at the very top of the photo, that perhaps you were standing under a tree, and I had not noticed that, but now my eye goes to that. But there's so many little nuances of things to look at, and I really liked that the sun was off center just a bit, and then the boat was a little more centered. It just again continued that motion of your eye to just keep exploring different parts.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Go for it.
You swimmer there in the water?
Could have been. It could also been a seal, maybe.
Or it could be a stick sticking out of the water.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
Near the second boat.
Right here.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and there is you all, I did not even notice that second boat, and I took this photo over a year ago. Great part about photography. Did we have one more group? No?
Well, I have a comment about, I was in the group with Paul and Brian. I thought that the color of the monochromatic really worked because there's this complementary of the blue interspersed in it, and I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you, everyone. You made me feel so elevated to start off my Tuesday. But beyond making me feel good, you all just engaged in active skill building. One, active looking opposed to active listening. You created constructive comments that were weighted and informative. And you also created these descriptions that could help benefit people who can't see the photos themselves. We think about alt text when it comes to uploading photos on, say, social media, which is a vital need for people who are visually impaired, who cannot see what you're talking about when you just say, look at this photo. So the more descriptive you get with your commentary, the more detailed, the more knowledgeable you become in what makes a good photo, how do compositional elements stack on top of each other to make it more visually appealing, like making subjects off center or using thirds. Whatever it is, all of those add weight to your descriptions that help other people feel it as well as you. Now, my last point, photography can help us escape from the bubbles we find ourselves trapped in. They expose us to new ideas, new points of view, new people, new areas of the world that give us a chance to be or do something different, which is important. We're humans, we get bored. So let's shake things up a little bit. And my last activity for you is with your breakout groups once again, but it's going to be a very short amount of time. It's going to be 2 minutes only. And the goal is to name as many different types of photography as possible. And I will give you a hint and probably only just name the 3 easiest ones off the top of our heads of portraits, events, landscapes. There are so many other types out there that I want to see how many you can name. I encourage you to have one person at least making note of all the ideas so that you can count up at the end how many you came up with. But with that, there we go, breakout rooms again. Fun fact about using full screens when you're doing Zoom presentations is that things get hid behind the scenes. I'm going to go ahead and open the room and hopefully not show you the answers. Two minutes.
Fine detail you would never be able to see with your eye. Like a grain of salt, for example.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome back, everyone. So real quick, down the list, each group, one representative, how many different types of photography did you come up with? Shout it out.
7.
7?
8.
I think we
8?
probably had 12.
That's awesome.
We had 14, but that includes the 3 you gave us.
You're welcome to include those. I know I did in my final count, which ultimately led me to at least different 55 ways of escaping your reality. There's so many things you can test out with other people or by yourself when it comes to photography that you never have to be stuck in just one lens or one view or one photo. So much to try out there. And with that, again, take some time at some point today to come back to these questions of what is something you learned from our time together? What is something you can share with someone by next week? And when and where can we see the photos you're going to take with the information you learned today? Make sure to leave a comment in the chat with your social media handles so that we can follow each other, support each other. Again, if you want constructive comments on the photos you take, follow and tag @PoppyPhotos so that I know that you're posting things and can hop on and make a comment. But with that, thank you so much for letting me share my point of view with you today. And I'm happy to take about 60 seconds to answer questions that either popped up in the chat or are popping up in your mind right now.
What do you think about camera photos? I mean, phone, using your phone for photos.
I think using your phones is as good a way as any to take a photo. Oftentimes, the text that is in our smartphones is even better than a lot of the cameras that people can actually afford out there, and it creates multi-use. You can live your life and take a photo all from one device, which a lot of people don't have the resources to split and do both. So I think it's just as good as anything. A couple things you can do to make them better. Hold your phones like this instead of like this. Create stability, lock your elbows in and kind of make a, not a tripod, but a stabilizing effect. And I also told my little cousin this weekend when I saw her and she was practicing with my big camera. She's 3 years old now and she's getting really worked up about the photos. I go, just breathe, one breath before you take the photo. And it is a wonder how much that helps clear up all of the fuzziness in your photos. I mean, handshaking. Great question, Phil. Koji, I think I answered your question in that activity.
What camera brand do you use?
Canon, but doesn't really matter anymore. All of the gear is great. I am invested in Canon because that's where all of my gear came from and continues to come from. Just by happenstance, I use a lot of secondhand equipment. So I am definitely not the person that's going to tell you to go out and buy the newest model of anything, be it a camera or piece of equipment. I encourage you to find either do-it-yourself ways of creating in studio gear or talking with other photographers in your area and finding equipment that they're no longer using that they can offload on you for a fair price. But Canon's my way. It's all roughly the same nowadays. Any other questions? Go ahead,
Do you use
Phil.
black and white?
Thank you very much, Erin.